The next one is pretty tough, actually. You're the reason why so many gays commit suicide. To which my heart sinks, but I also have to say I respond. Me? Really? Like I am? I know I've counseled people away from suicide multiple times. I've met with 2 people in the last week and a half. I've never had anyone that I'm aware of commit suicide because of me. I have had people that are alive today, and I know that I got to be some part of that. But really, I'm the reason so many commit suicide. They're implying that just disapproval, again, is therefore hatred of the person, and your hate is causing them to commit suicide. Now, I want to make a couple points about this. Most of the time, what will happen next is you'll get examples of horrible, ungodly behavior towards an LGBT person, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual person, and then how they subsequently committed suicide. But in every example I've ever heard, personally, the behavior that was done against them was not anything I would ever do. And it was behavior that all of us would, most of us at least, would say unanimously, that is horrible. Now, if I would never do it and I would disapprove of it, then why am I being blamed for it? It's like saying that everyone who's German is a Nazi. You know, and my wife's got German blood, and that's okay, well, you're a Nazi now. It's unfair to lump me in with people who do things I disapprove of, I preach against, and I would never do. Really, the issue here is, in those stories that you've heard in the news and things like that, where horrible things happen to this individual, then they committed suicide, what happened to them was major bullying and cruelty and meanness, which we all disapprove of. So what's the real issue? Is bullying, meanness, and disapproval, but not disapproval of homosexual behavior, but rather the way people were handling and bullying and coming against them. And I imagine the people who came against them for that behavior would come against them for all sorts of other things too, because they're just jerks. So it's really a case for not being a jerk, which I think is a good thing to try to not be. So we all agree, don't be a bully. Bullying increases people's difficulties in life, and it is a contributor towards suicide. But let me add some other interesting facts. A homosexual person who's engaging in what is no longer just a sin, but has now become a lifestyle, when you take a sin and turn it into a lifestyle, their struggle with sin may well factor into an increased suicide rate, which there is. But also, high rates of depression and romantic relationship problems right before episodes of suicide are very common amongst gay people, meaning much more common than bullying are relationship issues and depressive episodes. And I don't mean I'm down, I mean like clinical depression, which is a different thing than just feeling down. Can I also say, Judas committed suicide. Do we blame Jesus? Is it possible that Jesus could have said something to stop him? Absolutely. He might have been able to talk him out of it. Did God know Judas was going to commit suicide? Yeah. Do we therefore shift the blame onto Jesus? Say, Jesus, your unlivable standards are why this happened. You could have explained to him a couple things. That would have been helpful. You could have pulled him aside and said, Judas, you got a money problem. You're stealing, and I know it. But I love you, and I want you to know I affirm you. He could have done these things potentially, and maybe Judas wouldn't have committed suicide. Do we blame Jesus? Well, why don't we? Well, some people in society want to blame everyone else whenever someone commits suicide. I've known families who, after someone commits suicide, are utterly wrecked and devastated because of it. The first thing that happens is blame. This is my fault. This is your fault, that sort of thing. And that's a natural thing when there's a death in the family. There's always someone in the room who just immediately starts putting out the blame, which in my opinion, it's not important right now. Right now, let's just breathe and grieve and cry and whatever needs to be done here and pray and stuff. But that is unfortunately something that happens a lot. But I think it's unfair to blame all of society when somebody kills themselves. And there are situations where society, or individuals, I should say, in society, contributed to this person committing suicide, but it was the person who committed suicide. It wasn't murder, it was suicide. And there is a difference. There is a difference. So I'm not absolving everyone of any guilt, but there is a big difference and we should acknowledge it. One study compared the suicides of gay men with the suicides of straight men, and they found that they had something in common. Certain things. There's 3 things. Drinking, substance abuse, and diagnosed psychiatric problems were prevalent amongst all of those suicides, meaning that possibly common factors are actually leading to these suicides. Another study published in the American Association for Suicidology said, it is concluded that this study finds no evidence that suicide is a common characteristic of gay youth, meaning that people are inflating the numbers, or that when suicide does occur among gay teenagers, that it is a direct consequence of stigmatization or lack of support. They're simply saying, we think that, yes, it happens for sure. We know stories, but they're the anomaly rather than the regular. And so, yeah. And what's happening here is this whole thing about you're the reason why gays commit suicide is it's assuming that by disapproving of the behavior, I would therefore be hateful. And there are those who would hear me speaking now and they think secretly, Mike, you hate gay people. You're just trying to pretend you don't. This is all part of a well-crafted persona. And you don't really care about gay people, or you wouldn't really love them or hug them or spend time with them or pray for them or anything like that. And to that, I can say, nothing I can say will undo the evil picture you've painted of me. There's just nothing I can say because you're a bigot. There's nothing I can say.